Hi friends, let's take a look at Tezos and Link. This is just going to be a brief video to give you an update. We talked about this in the live video earlier on today. I hope you watched that and enjoyed it. If not, here's the details that you might have missed. So thanks for joining me. This is Tezos versus Bitcoin, Tezos versus Ethereum, Tezos versus the dollar, and as well, of course, the Chainlink video as well combined, the two of them. Chainlink will be coming up in the second half, and I'll use chapters down below to give you an idea so you can skip if you want to watch that first. Just starting off here with Tezos, we've come down and we've gone down as far as this 1618 Fibonacci retracement point. We've had this on the charts for quite a while. This is over here at 1532. We see the prices have come down as far as 1533 today. This is actually happening at the same time alongside divergence on the charts here, as we can see with this RSI not coming down as low as we had before in this downward trend. So there's the potential for this to turn around here. I'd like to see the DM, the negative DM stop going up towards the top side and be crossed by the ADX, and then of course a turnaround at some point in and around these areas for this to start to converge together again, as well to start triggering that off the way. If we look down the time frames, we can't see anything particularly bullish in terms of the DMI or any of the other oscillators, other than perhaps just the divergences that we have so far, and that kind of goes all the way down. That's as a result of the Bitcoin's bullishness today. Looking over at the US dollar pricing for this thing, you can see how this, of course, is still within the range of this lower area of this pitchfork in the background. And if we had an Ichimoku cloud in here, this would be the narrowest way through the cloud where this triangle area is. Let's see if we can push on past. If we do get an ascending triangle in these points, we're looking towards 241, 252 really being a key area for us in terms of the 236 Fibonacci. It's not on that particular chart. Where is she? Here she is. There we go, 252 there. And then, of course, we can start looking towards these upper side targets like 350 again, if that were the case. Now, looking down the way, of course, 192 has to be our sort of real Alamo point for us. And as well, let's see if this bullishness can work out for us on the Bitcoin pairing, given the way that the prices have become so extended, really. So let's just see if that's the case. Looking over at the Ethereum coin, you can see that we've still had the same sort of downward movement as what we've been talking about recently, and that just continues on the way. Our measured move, if we do get a breakout from this thing at some point, could take us up towards our 236 in there at 72, 0.0072. That's obviously a big 50% rise up from where we are just now. Movements down the way, then we have to look over towards our target on the left at 43. We're at 51 now. This has been one of our downside targets. Movements down past this area would be of no great shock. Let's take a look now then at Link as well. And Link has actually been doing okay overall against the Bitcoin pairing, having gone up ever so slightly against it today, which means, of course, the dollar pairing has been doing very well. Looking at this, we can see that we're in the pitchfork still. That's nice to see. We've got this wedge in the background. Movements above 93k are going to be key for us and the first port of call. Then we have targets towards the top side. Of course, our targets begin at 100k, and then we have a measured move which can take us as high as 130. Reasonable people might look towards 117 in the meantime, but looking down the way, of course, we have to be aware of the pitfalls below us. 86k being of key importance, 84 down there thereafter. And then targets towards the downside include, but are not limited to 65,900 and 55,000 there for the next two downside targets. If they were to push down the way, of course, we also have a measuring stick that takes us down towards that 50% Fibonacci extension that I was just using for reference. If we look here as well, by the way, we've got a negative sort of stance, but we're consolidating sideways, so there's no big deal. And looking at this, we've got a rising wedge pattern on the Stochastics, for instance, and we're coming up to a swing point at the neutral line. Can we push past it or not? We're certainly positioned that way at the minute, but of course we have got questions to answer. Those are getting answered quite easier over here on the dollar pairing. Looking at this line, which is of our key importance at 1170, that has been respected so far, and we are at the 382 Fibonacci retracement point. Still bearing in mind the target towards the top side can come in there as high as $15.60, but we're going to have to be more reasonable than that and look towards this $13.69 area, where we have the top end of this channel currently positioned. If we were were to actually drop down past this yellow line, that'd be going down past the median line of it. We could look down to $11 and then the downside target thereafter at $10.33. If we actually push past that and we're looking for negative downside targets, you're talking $8.26 and then $6.79. But let's hope that we don't have to do that, and instead we can look up towards these top side targets, taking out that $15.60 area of key importance, because then we undo the 236 on this Fibonacci, which so far we've come down and filled in at the 618 for in a beautiful Fibonacci textbook movement pattern for us. So let's see if we can do all that. Measured moves outside of moves beyond this zone can take us up to doing these things. We'll not get too bogged down in the detail at that point. Suffice it to say that this is where the good story lies in terms of the pairings for these things, and that could be what feeds back to the Bitcoin one to bring it up the way. Now, in terms of the bad story, what we have to remember is that there is the potential for us to be in a rising wedge just here after having followed on from this descending wedge on the left. If this reminds you of anything, it might remind you of the Bitcoin video earlier where I did the same comparison, just here, where you've got a descending broadening wedge with a rising wedge to the right. Our macro targets here in terms of the overall industry come down to the same sort of boiling it down. So watch that video if you haven't, it's on the channel. It boils it down to the same sort of area that we're looking at and saying, well, you know, if we were to do something like this, would we see this on the opposite side? That's a question that remains yet to be answered. If we do move up towards the top side, we've got the 1414, bringing it in line with the rest of the industry in terms of the movements towards the top side so far. In terms of targets at 1578 there in terms of the dollar pairing off the back of these Fibonacci's, and that would be decent enough to see. That's where our measured moves would take us. Looking down the way, it would take us down for 100% retrace down towards 745. But over here on the Link Ethereum pairing, I think we've got the remainder and return back, the remainder of the positive story, the return back to the positive story. And looking up here, our movement up the way could take us up to the 618 target off the back of this ascending triangle that's here. And of course, you know, there's various other things to be aware of. Right now we're in volatility land, so we do certainly have the rocket fuel on board if we wanted to blast one way or the other. But one way or the other, it does include the downside targets here, bring us down as far as 21, 0.021, knocking nearly a third off the price. That would be shocking. Let's hope that that doesn't happen, and instead we get to look up towards the 0.038, add in more than 30 or 20%, nearly 30% onto the price instead. That would be our two targets. Now, if we were to just go in between for them, you know, 35 would be more reasonable, and our previous low in there at 23 would be the more reasonable downside target in terms of any move outside of this zone. Volatility in storage says that we should really be looking towards 28 towards the downside if we do, and then 31 towards the upside in terms of just the near term case scenario for us. This has all been done on the 3-day time frame though, and yes, if you do then take this information, mix it together with the one from the Bitcoin video earlier on, Bitcoin and Ethereum, and the live video from today, you'll know exactly where we are in the market. So you can even apply that over to the Bitcoin dominance thing and see what you think about it all shaping up in the longer term picture. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name's been Rocky Outcrop. I'll be back again with more episodes tomorrow.